We got new TVs, so I'm doing something I've never done before with a sermon. I'm going to share a couple pictures. So this is one of my favorite pictures. This is a picture of me and my dear friend Jess from seminary. And looking at this picture, this was a time I had some interesting hair choices, but looking at this picture, I remember the happiness we were filled with and the joy and the love we were feeling during this moment on this trip we were on, and the friends we were with, and the memories we were making. And this memory, this picture, is one that I will never forget. I think I might have shared this story, not in a sermon before, but just in passing with a few of you. But this is the picture. And this picture was taken, there's lots of scaffolding. They were working on the interior of this church. But this picture was taken where they say Jesus was born. This is the Church of the Nativity in Bethlehem, Palestine. So we took this picture to remember the moment we were in, and we looked at it because of our phones. We looked at the picture, we looked at each other, and not really thinking at all, we started to laugh, big laughs. We laughed with glee. And we did so in a church that was known to keep silent in holy reverence. You were not supposed to talk when you walked into this church. And so what I did was a big, if you know me, I laugh loud. So what this picture does not show you is that immediately after this picture was taken, Jess and I promptly got kicked out of Jesus' birthplace. You heard that right. We got ourselves kicked out, and not just ourselves, but our entire tour group, because we laughed too loud. And I remember throughout that whole trip to Holy Land feeling enveloped in the love of the people I was traveling with, the Palestinians who graciously hosted us, being saturated in the joy in all that I was learning and seeing, the anticipations being fulfilled in a place I had longed to travel to since I was a child. And that's what the joy of this picture was. And we can flip to the next one. And I just wanted to share with you, I don't know, I had not seen the place where Jesus was born. I don't even remember the first time I saw a picture. But this is, when you go down underneath the church, this is what it looks like, how it's marked. And yes, thankfully, everyone in my tour group had been down into the grotto to see the site of Jesus' birth. So I don't have to feel too bad about getting us all kicked out. And we did. That security guard, he ran at us. I can just remember, thankfully, the joy we were feeling on that day. The buzz of excitement that was coursing through us as we walked on, as we looked at, as we touched the very same stones that we had learned about all of our lives by reading the Bible. And I've been thinking about my time in the Holy Land a lot lately for obvious reasons. It is hard to see what is happening over in the land that is the birthplace to Christianity, Islam, Judaism, the land that God has blessed for all and is important to all of those that practice those three major religions. And as I share the memory tonight about my own time physically being in the place where Emmanuel came into this world, it is not lost on me that Christmas Eve in Bethlehem is perhaps more like the first Christmas Eve 2,000 years ago than it ever has been. Knowing that Christmas has been scaled back a lot there this year. There's no decorations, there's no special parades, there's no celebrations happening this week. What is happening, though, is sacred worship. Sacred worship due to a year of war, sacred worship of quiet and stillness and waiting for God to make God's self known to the whole world. And whether you are one who is celebrating quietly this year, or one who is perhaps participating in a more rambunctious celebration, either way, there is always seems to be something in the air on this night. In her book, Home by Another Way, theologian Barbara Brown Taylor writes about the specialness that is in the air on Christmas Eve. She says, "Can you feel it?" She says, "The hum in the air tonight, as all of our preparations come to an end and our celebrations begin." She writes, "I don't think it's just us either. I think all of creation is humming tonight. When the membrane between heaven and earth is so thin you can almost see through it. Tonight is the night that we measure all time against. Everything that happened yesterday is before Christ, and everything that happens tomorrow is after Christ. So tonight, we are living in the eternal now of God coming among us. The eternal now. Think about that. Right this very moment, God is entering this world. Emmanuel, which means God with us here and now, who is made out of the same stuff as we are, and who is made out of the same stuff as God is, and who will not let either one of those truths overshadow the other. And isn't that what has drawn us all here tonight? To hear the babies cry, to hear the sound that reassures us that yes, indeed, Emmanuel has come, is with us. That is what the anticipation and the participation of the season of Advent is all about. Well, sure, God among us, yes. But some of us are probably waiting for a few other things as well. Let's be real. Such as the anticipation building inside of us to see our loved ones open those gifts we have meticulously chosen for them and have been under the tree for a few days now just wishing to be opened. Or the growing joy as one readies all the beds in the house to be filled this night with family gathered together. But then there is also the waiting that's been going on through the season that doesn't seem to be about Christmas at all, and yet is intrinsically tied to it. The nervous wonder if the new year will bring that new job opportunity you so desperately need or want. Or the anticipation of that one empty chair for the first time on this Christmas. Or the memories filled with joy of another time that meets you with bittersweet melancholy, as this year will be. It will be a little different than before for a variety of reasons. You all have your own. For good or ill, each Christmas Eve functions a little bit like a time machine, taking us back to every other Christmas spent here on this earth. So we gather tonight with a hum in the air of memories past and yet to come. We gather here in our own makeshift Bethlehem of sorts. We have brought our hopes, our joys, our anticipations, and we have laid them down at the manger tonight. And we wait to see how they become fulfilled as our God, as our Emmanuel, is born into them in the morning. Yes, the air is humming with all sorts of feelings about what this night might mean for us all. And those feelings, those anticipations, have been truly humming in the air all season long. I've been receiving them all month, whether you sent out a Christmas card this year or just received them like I have so far. The air has been filled with the hum of mail, with family photos marked with the words peace, joy, love, as family and friends sent out their greetings and their well wishes. Photos trying to capture moments experiencing said words of peace, joy, and love. And maybe you and yours were able to send out into the world such moments and greetings, but maybe they didn't quite make it on a card soon enough to be sent out. But maybe as you think back through this year, you can fondly recall those important moments enough to wonder why you don't walk around experiencing them a little more often. But that's the truth of life, is it not? These holiday cards that are sent out around this time of the year, the pictures that do not capture at all what our year was truly about, even though we sure wish they did. Because in truth, there are parts of the year that feel blurry, and other moments that if they were to be captured by a camera at all, well, they were immediately followed by tantrums and eye rolls and grumbling. A picture that captures a moment, but not the whole story. And so hear this, the truth of the gospel, that even our Emmanuel and his family, well, the picture we receive and that we read about on this night of his birth, well, that too has been touched up. That too has been meant and made to look better around the edges. That too was a moment followed by a whole different story, with baby cries and baby screams. And you know this story by heart. We all do. But we tend to forget that the place of Jesus' birth was probably really smelly. Probably smelled horrible. The manger was probably not comfortable at all. The animals gathered around were probably really loud. And Joseph's family did not allow him and Mary to stay with them that night. And Mary was probably desperately missing her mother and wondering how she had gotten into this mess, traveling across the country when any day she was about to give birth to her first child. But right there and deep in the mess of life, in an animal stall that may or may not have been mucked out, Mary laid her baby in a manger, and the heavens shone down. And in that second, with Joseph hovering over her, peering at his new son, a picture was taken. A single perfect moment of joy and peace and love. And it was shared for the whole world to see. And then, in the very next moment, the angelic light was gone, the baby spit up. The only music that could be heard was coming from the local bar around the corner. And yet, through the midst of all that humanness and that earthliness, God was there. In that perfect moment when the heavens declared this baby to be the Messiah, and God was there when the world once continued on in its chaotic ways immediately after. Yes, the God who is with us is not a God who lifts us up out of the loud and the messiness of life, but who settles in alongside of us, who comes to us to be in the midst of us, who doesn't care if our Christmas cards and pictures on them, if we got them out, reflects our lives accurately or not, but who is here now despite the fact that we may only be able to pull ourselves together for a quick snap of a pic, and even then, maybe not. I hope you go into this Christmas Eve night knowing this. Any of us who have prayed to God to show up in our lives is getting their prayers answered tonight. For everyone, Emmanuel is coming from up there to down here tonight to be to our own little makeshift Bethlehems. For our God has chosen to share in our lives and to dwell among us